happening to him now is one of the greatest tragedies that we're gonna ever read about, bro. This is gonna be one of the greatest tragedies of hip-hop, along with Pac's death, along with Big's death.
Federal agents took Sean Diddy Combs into custody. They placed Combs under arrest and lead him out the front door in handcuffs.
Gene Deal just said something he probably wasn't supposed to say. Diddy's former bodyguard is now claiming that Diddy knew about the murders of Tupac and Biggie before they happened. And according to him, he may have even been involved in planning them, allegedly. The wildest part is the moment Gene Deal seems to realize he said way too much and why people think his safety could now be at risk. And while all this is blowing up, people are also asking another big question. What's the latest update coming out of Diddy's prison cell right now? Listen, everyone has heard theories about who killed Tupac and Biggie. The internet never lets it die. But this isn't coming from some random fan or YouTube detective. Gene Deal wasn't on the sidelines. He was right there in the middle of everything. He was Diddy's personal bodyguard back in the 1990s, moving with him daily. Gene Deal was literally standing nearby the night Biggie was shot. He watched Diddy's behavior up close and personal, and according to him, things that night didn't add up at all. He saw movements, reactions, and decisions that most people never noticed. That's why his claims are hitting different now. And after staying quiet for years, Gene is finally speaking out, and what he's revealing sounds completely crazy. And that's putting it lightly. Before we break down his bombshell claims, you've got to understand the background, because without context, none of this makes sense at all. I'm not going to recap who Gene Deal is or rehash Diddy's party reputation. Everyone already knows that story. It's basically internet brain rot at this point. Instead, let's rewind to what was really happening in hip-hop during the mid-1990s. Tupac and Biggie weren't enemies at first, they were real friends, almost like brothers. But things flipped fast. By 1996 and 1997, the East Coast versus West Coast rivalry was completely out of control. Rappers picked sides, tracks turned into threats, and the tension was boiling over everywhere. Then came September 7th, 1996, in Las Vegas. Tupac had just left a Mike Tyson boxing match when someone pulled up next to his car and shot him multiple times. A moment that would change hip-hop forever. Tupac fought for his life for 6 days, but on September 13th, 1996, he passed away. He was only 25 years old, and the hip-hop world was left stunned. The loss was heavy, but what followed made things even darker. Just 6 months later, Biggie Smalls was killed on March 9th, 1997, in Los Angeles. Biggie was leaving a party when a car pulled up beside him and shots were fired. He was hit 4 times and never made it to the hospital. Biggie was only 24 years old, with his entire life still ahead of him. In a matter of seconds, another legend was gone, and the shock rippled through the culture. For years, people searched for answers about who was really behind these murders. Police investigated, but no arrests were made and no charges were filed. Both cases went cold and stayed that way for decades. Rumors and theories filled the silence, but real answers never surfaced. Until now. Gene Deal is finally speaking out, and what he's saying could change how these cases are viewed. According to Gene, investigators missed key details. He talks about private conversations that happened behind closed doors, moments the public never knew about. Gene begins with a claim few expected. He says Diddy had deep jealousy toward Tupac Shakur, not normal competition or industry rivalry, but something personal and intense.
Said it himself. He said, I don't know how to talk to women. I don't know how to talk to girls. You understand? I said, you don't have to know how to talk to nobody. You a millionaire. You got it. So he was jealous of Pac because Pac ain't had to do that. Pac had that aura, you know what I'm saying? And he probably knew how to communicate with women. And most women who he talked to that said stuff, said about it.
See, Tupac Shakur had a natural pull that was impossible to miss. When Pac walked into a room, people felt it right away. His energy was loud without him saying a word, and his presence filled the space. Women were drawn to Tupac effortlessly. He didn't have to chase attention or force conversations. It came naturally to him, like second nature. That kind of confidence couldn't be taught or bought. Now compare that to Sean Combs. He had money, power, and control of Bad Boy Records. He was successful on paper, but according to Gene, something was missing. Gene says Diddy struggled in situations where Tupac thrived. He didn't have Pac's smooth talk or that magnetic personality. When Tupac was around, Gene claims you could see it in Diddy's eyes. The tension, the envy, the quiet frustration. No amount of money could buy what Tupac had naturally. That difference sat heavy, and Gene believes it kept growing over time. This wasn't just about competition or pride. Gene thinks that jealousy became personal and eventually dangerous. To understand why this matters, you have to go back to 1994. Anyone who knows hip-hop history knows about the Quad Recording Studios shooting. This was the moment everything changed between Tupac and Biggie Smalls. That night, Tupac arrived at the studio to record with other artists. In the lobby, 3 men wearing army jackets robbed him and shot him 5 times. Tupac survived, barely, but nothing was ever the same after that. That night is often seen as the spark that pushed the East Coast and West Coast tension into open war. The shooter later identified himself as Dexter Isaac, and years later, he publicly confessed to his role. He claimed a powerful music figure, Jimmy Henchman, paid him $2,500 to carry out the attack. At that time, Jimmy Henchman was known as someone with deep influence in music and serious street connections. This is where Gene Deal's story takes a sharp turn. Gene claims that Sean Combs was actually inside Quad Recording Studios that same night. According to Gene, Diddy already knew Jimmy Henchman was planning to hurt Tupac Shakur, and he didn't step in to stop it. Gene says Diddy was originally there to keep an eye on Biggie Smalls, who was working on publishing matters. While there, Gene claims it became clear that Tupac was being targeted. People were openly talking about Tupac having to pay for something, and Gene says Diddy heard all of it. Instead of warning Tupac or trying to slow things down, Gene alleges Diddy stayed silent and let events play out.
There to spy on Big. In an interview of him being there to spy on Big, Jimmy Henchman told him that they finna show Pac, teach Pac a lesson, because Pac had owed him some money. So that's why he was up in the studio and was coming to the studio. Pac owed him some money. Pac owed him some money. He was gonna work it off and get some money from doing a song with Lil Sean. And that's what that was about. But Pac was talking greasy to Jimmy Henchman, and Jimmy Henchman was the type of dude that you talk greasy to, allegedly, unless you're 50 Cent.
So Diddy knew what was going to happen to Pac.
He knew Pac was about to deal with. Yeah, he was there to see it. He was there to see it. He wasn't only there to see Big them. When Jimmy Henchman told him that, he was there to see what's going to happen to Pac. He was there for that, because had he not been there for that, he would have went up there in the office. He would have went to the studio or the studio session with Big them. He would have went to that studio session with Big them. He knew what room Big them was in. He didn't do that. He was there to see what was going to happen to Pac after Jimmy told him, and that's fact.
Think about that for a moment. Knowing someone could get hurt and choosing to say nothing is a heavy thing to sit with. Gene raises the question everyone asks quietly. Was jealousy part of it? Was the resentment toward Tupac strong enough that letting him get hurt felt acceptable, even convenient? That question still hangs in the air today. I'll let you decide. But the idea that Diddy allegedly knew about the Quad Studios shooting and chose to stay silent doesn't just look suspicious. It feels deeply unsettling. That silence is what makes people uncomfortable. Now fast forward to 1996, the year Tupac Shakur was killed in Las Vegas. This is where the story gets even more layered, and where more fingers start pointing toward Sean Combs. Kirk Burroughs, the co-founder of Bad Boy Entertainment, worked closely with Diddy for years. He knew his habits, his mindset, and how he moved behind the scenes. Kirk later came forward in the Netflix documentary, The Reckoning, with serious claims.
Kirk Burroughs, he also said that, he feels like, Diddy was behind Pac murder.
Yeah, if Diddy played a part in that stuff, like he said, Kirk know where the money came from. I'ma say this. They tried to, if you talk about the Vegas trip and the whole 9 yards, Kirk said that he paid for people to drive out to Vegas. You know what I'm saying? He said he paid for people to drive out of Vegas. I was heavily with Bad Boy at that time. I don't remember that part of it. You understand? I don't remember that part of it. But if Kirk knew and he was paying for people to drive out to Vegas in the whole 9 yards. It's hard to hide $1 million, brother. You ain't going to cash that in the check cashing place. You signing that over to somebody. I said 1,000 times, and I'll say it 1,000 times again. Eric Von Zip showed me and my man Boondang, aka my man Slick, a check for $1 million. We don't know, and everybody trying to say, lying, talking about half of it got paid, 500. I don't know. I know when I asked him about, we asked him, do we ask? No, we didn't ask him. I know when he showed us the check and he walked away after he showed us the check for the $1 million, you understand? I asked Boone, I said, yo, Boone, when did he get a record label? He said, you know how Zip is. I said, when did he get a Zip record label? Zip had a check for $1 million. He said he got it from Barry Hankerson and Jimmy Henchman for his record label, Black Ground Records. So now, if that's true, we know Jimmy Henchman and Puff was cool. You should be able to trace $1 million if that's the truth. If that's the truth, you should be able to trace that, where it came from. Why did he?
Kirk says he believes Diddy played a role in what happened to Tupac. And once again, he points to jealousy. By that time, Tupac was untouchable. His album All Eyes on Me had just dropped and was selling millions. Tupac was everywhere, and according to Kirk, Diddy couldn't stand watching him dominate the spotlight. Here's where things take a strange turn. Kirk claims that around the time of Tupac's death, Diddy made an unusual request. He allegedly wanted to rent multiple cars to drive from New York to Las Vegas during the same weekend as the Mike Tyson fight. That's a cross-country drive that takes nearly 40 hours. Most people fly to Vegas. They don't drive unless there's a reason to avoid airports. Kirk's allegation raises one heavy question. Were people sent to Las Vegas for more than just a road trip? Then there's the money trail, and this is where the story turns uncomfortable. Dwayne Keith Davis, known as Keith D, has been charged in Tupac's murder. Keith D has publicly claimed that someone offered him $1 million to kill both Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight, the head of Death Row Records. According to these allegations, only half of that money was paid out. The reason given is simple. Tupac was killed, but Suge Knight survived. That meant only half the job was completed. The money allegedly went to a man named Eric Von Zip Martin. Here's where things start to unravel. Zip Martin reportedly never passed that money down to the shooters. Instead, he kept it for himself, which raised serious questions about where the money actually came from and who was behind it. This is where Gene Deal adds a chilling detail. Gene says Zip Martin personally showed him a $1 million check. Gene claims he saw it with his own eyes and asked Zip directly where the money came from. According to Gene, Zip said the money came from Jimmy Henchman. That answer only opened another door. If Jimmy Henchman supplied the money, where did Jimmy get it from? Did someone else fund the hit through him? And who had both the money and the motive to want Tupac gone? Gene's conclusion is straightforward. He believes law enforcement needs to follow the paper trail and trace exactly where that $1 million originated, because money doesn't move without intention. Gene believes that if investigators truly follow the money, it will eventually point back to Sean Combs. That's his belief, and according to him, this story is only getting deeper. And somehow, the most disturbing part is still ahead. Now let's go to March 9th, 1997, the night Biggie Smalls was killed in Los Angeles. Gene Deal says he was there for everything that happened, and what he describes still doesn't sit right with him.
We lined up parallel to where the doors they have to come out. So if they come out right here, the car's right there. They're right there. So then Big is taking his time because his fibula bones and his thighs are broken or whatever like that. They fractured or whatever. So it's taking them a long time to come out. So they get out, Big gets in the car, everybody get loaded up. I said, come on, let's go. We ready to go. Puff is running back and forth like, yo, he'll see a girl, he'll go grab a girl. He said, yo, Gene, remember her, she coming to the party tomorrow. I'm like, remember her? What the fuck is you talking about, bro? I never seen him act like this ever, because he don't act like that. Because even in New York City, once Puff get in the car, he'll leave his mama. We gone, we out. So Puff is like looking, and if you see the cameras, you see him running back and forth, looking and everything like that. So I said, Big man, what we standing around here for? He said, that's your man.
According to Gene, in the days leading up to that night, Diddy was acting off. He was restless, jumpy, and constantly looking over his shoulder. Something clearly had him on edge, but he never explained what it was. At first glance, you might think that made sense. They were in Los Angeles, and Tupac had been killed there just 6 months earlier. But Gene insists this wasn't normal caution. This was fear mixed with expectation, like someone knew something bad was coming. On the night of the Soul Train Awards after party, Gene says Diddy's behavior became even stranger. Looking back, Gene now believes none of it was random. He thinks Diddy was making calculated moves. When the party ended and everyone started heading to their cars, Gene did what a bodyguard is supposed to do. He told Diddy he planned to ride alongside Biggie's vehicle for protection, just in case. That's when things turned cold. Diddy shut it down immediately. He warned Gene that if he didn't get into Diddy's car instead, his job at Bad Boy Records would be finished.
Parked on the side of the Peterson Museum. So when I said to Paul said we was ready to go, I said, all right, follow us. I tried to ride on the side of the car. Puff said, yo, Gene, what you doing? I said, I'm riding on the side of the car. I have my gun out. I'm on the side of the car. At the time, I'm 265. You know what I'm saying? I'm not the street 30. You know what I mean? So I was a little slimmer back then. So he says to me, Gene, if you don't get in this car, you ain't gonna never work for Bad Boy ever again. I said, man, how the fuck you gonna try to tell me how to do my job? He said, Gene, we don't need that look. We don't need that look. Get in the car. As I go to get in the car, this motherfucker reached down and let his seat all the way back. So now I gotta put my legs sideways. I'm like, yo, what the fuck is you doing? And so then Kenny said, you ready? He said, you ready? I said, Kenny, run the next 3 lights. Run the next 3 lights, Kenny. Kenny said, for what? I said, mother, run the next 3 lights, Kenny, or I'm gonna drive.
Think about this for a second. A bodyguard wants to protect your closest artist, your biggest star, and you threaten to fire him for doing his job. That doesn't add up unless you don't want that person protected at all. Gene says this behavior was completely out of character for Sean Combs. Normally, once Diddy decided it was time to leave, there was no delay. He moved fast, no hesitation. Gene even says Diddy would leave anyone behind, no matter who it was, just to get out quickly. But that night was different. Diddy kept moving back and forth. He stopped to talk to women. He asked Gene if he recognized certain people. He kept mentioning that someone was coming to the party the next day. Gene says he had never seen Diddy act like this before. Instead of rushing out, Diddy was stalling. He looked nervous, distracted, and alert, like he was waiting for something to line up. Even people around them noticed it. One of Diddy's own friends asked why they were still standing around because the delay made no sense. Looking back, Gene believes the stalling wasn't random. He thinks Diddy was waiting for the shooter to get into position. He was making sure Biggie Smalls' car would be exactly where it needed to be and making sure Gene wouldn't be close enough to intervene. Outside the Peterson Automotive Museum, all the cars were lined up. Diddy forced Gene into his own vehicle, which pulled out ahead of Biggie's. Gene still had his gun tucked under his shirt, but from that position, he couldn't protect Biggie from another car. As they finally started to pull away, Gene noticed something that immediately caught his attention. Gene says there was a car parked at the corner that clearly hadn't just pulled up. It looked like it had been sitting there, waiting. Earlier that night, Gene also noticed a man wearing a blue suit with a white shirt and a bow tie walking near the cars. When the man saw Gene, he stopped, made direct eye contact, then turned around and walked away. Gene subtly showed his gun to make it clear he was armed. The man left the area, but Gene later wondered if that was the shooter checking the scene before everything went down. That moment stuck with him. Here's what Gene keeps stressing. There's no way the shooter's car could have landed in that exact spot unless it was already there ahead of time. The vehicle was parked at the precise corner where Biggie Smalls' car had to pass. The timing lined up too clean. The positioning was too perfect. This wasn't random. This wasn't someone acting on impulse. Gene believes it was planned step by step. Someone knew where Biggie would be sitting, which car he'd be in, what time he'd leave, and exactly where to wait. That kind of detail only comes from inside knowledge. Right after the shooting, Gene and his partner Tone jumped into their car and tried to chase the shooter. They wanted to catch him and get justice for Biggie. That's when something strange happened. Their car had a government-installed speed limiter that prevented it from going over 100 miles per hour. Every time they got close, the engine pulled back and slowed them down. Gene says they could see the shooter's car near the top of a hill. They were close, but by the time they reached it, the car was gone. like it vanished into the night, gone into the Los Angeles night. Now think about this carefully. Why would a bodyguard's car have a device that stops it from going fast? Bodyguards are supposed to move quickly, escape danger, and chase threats when needed. A speed limiter on that kind of vehicle makes no sense unless someone didn't want that car catching anyone. Gene believes that chip wasn't there by coincidence. He thinks it was installed for one reason only, to make sure the shooter could get away after everything he witnessed that night. After the strange behavior, after the delays, after all the warning signs, Gene says he reached a conclusion he never wanted to reach. Gene Deal believes Sean Combs was responsible for planning Biggie Smalls' murder. He says that despite the tears at the funeral, despite the emotional tribute song I'll Be Missing You, none of it felt real to him. Gene believes it was an act meant for the public. According to Gene, the motive comes back to control. He says Diddy never wanted anyone to outshine him. He needed to be the biggest figure in every room, the center of attention at all times. And Biggie was becoming too powerful on his own. He was rising fast, gaining independence, and starting to move beyond Diddy's reach. Biggie was building his own production company, and to Gene, that's when everything changed. Biggie was making moves to eventually leave Bad Boy Records. He was planning to become his own boss, and in Gene's view, that changed everything. In Sean Combs' world, control was everything, and Biggie no longer needed him. That independence turned Biggie into a problem Diddy couldn't manage anymore. According to Gene, that's when a decision was made. If Biggie couldn't be controlled, then he had to be removed. And when you look at what happened after Biggie died, Gene says the pattern becomes hard to ignore. Diddy owned Biggie's music. After Biggie's death, he made millions from the catalog. His public profile grew even bigger, and his influence expanded. The tragedy didn't slow his career down. It pushed it to another level, and that fact alone raises uncomfortable questions. But this is where Gene's story turns deeply personal. Years later, Gene says he learned that Diddy allegedly wanted him killed too. Not just anyone, but his own bodyguard. Gene says he had saved Diddy's life multiple times. He put himself in danger to protect him. He stayed loyal and treated Diddy like family. They shared experiences that usually create lifelong trust. Finding out that someone like that may have wanted him gone shattered him completely. Gene says the betrayal still sits heavy. He didn't turn on Diddy. He didn't steal. He didn't cross any lines. According to Gene, the real issue was simple and terrifying. He knew too much, and that made him a liability. According to Gene, this isn't just betrayal. He describes it as something far darker, something maniacal, wanting someone dead who was nothing but loyal, someone who saved your life and stood by you through everything, points to something seriously broken. Gene says this is the real version of Sean Combs, not the public image with tailored suits and cameras flashing. He believes Diddy is someone who removes anyone he views as a threat, even the people closest to him. Loyalty doesn't protect you once control is at risk. So now the question is yours to answer. Do Gene Deal's claims add up? Could Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls' deaths really trace back to jealousy and control? Was this about power more than music? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this story, and let your voice be heard. See you in the next one.